René Magritte would absolutely hate this video. You know the painter, you know his pipe, which isn't a pipe. I've made 3 videos on him. He's an extremely known surrealist. But he was a peculiar surrealist, which is why he would hate what I'm about to do. It would be impossible to talk about surrealism without mentioning psychoanalysis, using the subconscious as an endless source of creativity, tapping into it through different methods, sometimes through automatism or letting your subconscious draw, or through the depiction of dreams. There are many more elements in common between surrealism and psychoanalysis, but the exploration of the human mind, especially the hidden part of the human mind, are central to both. However, Magritte hated having his paintings psychoanalyzed. Perhaps he wanted his paintings to remain a mystery, or he wanted to give people the liberty to interpret his paintings without the weight of the artist's own subconscious seeping into the meaning of it. Perhaps it made him vulnerable. In any case, in this video, we'll be looking at 6 beautiful Magritte paintings, which are all linked to an extremely traumatic event in the artist's life. Before we do, I posted a video about the artist residency I opened. I'm looking for applicants, so check it out. You also broke the record for the 3rd week in a row of Patreon memberships. It's absolutely incredible, and I don't expect you to break that record again, but if you do like what the canvas offers, you can appear in the credits at the end of each video for as little as $1 per month. That's 25 cents per video or $12 per year. As I always say, it doesn't seem like much, but it really does help out. Thank you so much. We'll go in chronological order, and the first painting I want to show you is The Musings of a Solitary Walker, made in 1926. A man with a bowler hat walks alone in gloomy weather next to a river. You don't see the man's face. He's walking away, hands in his pockets. In the foreground, however, lays a pale, perhaps androgynous body. It's fish-like. It doesn't have hair, and gills can be found on its torso. It appears to be dead. The fact that it's floating makes it seem as if it could be an illusion or a dream. This is perhaps the most obvious depiction of Magritte's trauma out of all the paintings I'll be showing. Here's what happened. On February 24th, 1912, when René was 14, his mother died in the Sambre River in Châtelet, Belgium. Suicidal, she escaped her house, in which she was locked in for her own safety. 17 days later, she was found, drowned in the river, her nightgown covering her face. This painting was made 14 years after the event. The menaced assassin, also made the same year, could also be about Magritte's mother. A murderer listens to a gramophone while the body of his victim lays behind him. 2 detectives are about to catch him. 3 very similar-looking men watch the scene unfold. The reason why this woman could be Magritte's mother is because of the white scarf, the kind of fabric that could be pulled over her face, which is how her body was found. The 3 men behind her could be the Magritte brothers, René being the eldest. However, I'm not entirely convinced that this painting has anything to do with the death of Magritte's mother. She didn't bleed. She was indeed found naked, but her face was covered. Also, it wasn't a murder, but a suicide. If anything, maybe this painting shows Magritte's doubts about the death of his mother. What if she was murdered and thrown in the river? A year later, in 1927, the central story would be painted. A woman with a cloth over her face, which is how Magritte's mother was found, is shown with her hand wrapped around her neck. Aside from the fact that she's wearing clothes, it might be hard to argue that this isn't, in fact, linked to his mother's suicide. The tuba could symbolize many different things, but the suitcase, I believe, may have the most significant meaning, as it shows someone leaving. A year later, again in 1928, Magritte painted The Lovers 1 and 2. In The Lovers 1, you see a couple posing next to each other. In Lovers 2, they kiss. However, the paintings gain interest because they're both veiled. These are iconic works despite their possibly morbid background. You've already seen Lovers 2, and there's something quite beautiful about it. Perhaps these lovers love each other without knowing what the other looks like, making their love blind. Perhaps there's a suffocating effect to their love. Maybe they're overwhelmed, passionately kissing to the point of losing breath. The veils could be a reference to the character Fantomas from a popular series of French novels, or could be a reference to his mother. Much later in 1945, Magritte would paint Rape. This painting is perhaps one of his most shocking ones, not only because of the title, but also because of what it depicts. It's a portrait of a woman, but her face is replaced for her body. The neck is also quite strange and phallic. Now, this could be a commentary on the perception of women, but many have linked it to Magritte's own perception of his mother, her face being obscured and her body being exposed. Then there's the final painting in 1964, perhaps a closure to the series of possible Magritte paintings about his mother, The Great War. A lady is elegantly dressed in white on a bright, sunny day. She's posing in front of the ocean. Despite not being able to see her face, we can assume she's happy by the way she's confidently standing in front of us. Her face isn't covered by a suffocating veil, but by flowers. Perhaps Magritte was finally able to put this trauma behind, and he was done grieving. Alright, so we briefly overviewed some masterpieces produced by Magritte, which may or may not be about his childhood trauma. This speculation can definitely be interesting, but did it add anything to our appreciation of these artworks? When I analyze artworks for these videos, I can take various different angles. Last week, when discussing Gérôme's The Execution of Marshal Ney, I looked at previous works by Gérôme. When I discussed Grant Wood's American Gothic, I looked at its historical context and through the lens of American nationalism. When I looked at Brenda Kilda's Worn Out, I looked at it through the theme of violence. For these Magritte paintings, I've framed them through his own personal experience with a traumatic event, an angle which the artist himself would disapprove of. And I completely understand Magritte for believing that. I personally find Lovers 2 more compelling when looking at it through the lens of blind love or passionate love, perhaps looking at a loss of identity through love, or looking at the idealization we make of a lover which conceals their true identity. Those are conversations and themes that, at least to me, are much more profound and meaningful than the possibility that this may or may not represent Magritte's childhood trauma pertaining to the death of his mother. After all of this, I feel like maybe we should take Magritte's advice. Maybe we lose a painting's depth when it's used as a way to psychoanalyze the artist. I invite you to look back at the 6 paintings we just looked at and develop your own interpretation, your own thoughts and appreciation. Don't let Magritte's personal life get in your way, and definitely don't let some person on YouTube tell you what these paintings mean. When building your own appreciation, it'll be up to you if you want to take Magritte's personal life in consideration, as it will be up to you to decide if you want to use my own interpretation as a way to start your own. I really hope you do. Let me know what you think in the comments. Develop your skill to express your appreciation of an artwork. It's pretty rewarding. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you Axel, Mike Wex, Roman Brandel, Russell Chinchilla, X Towns, and all my other patrons for supporting the channel. If you also want to help out, leave a like, subscribe, and check out patreon.com/thecanvas. Thank you.